It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Slashers in Sync. I'm MJ, and this is
Marvelous.
So we are the host and co-host of Slashers in Sync. So if you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe and check us out. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or on Apple Music, make sure to also subscribe to the podcast and follow us as well to keep up to date with all of our stuff. Links to all of our social media platforms will be down below in the description of both the podcast and the video if you're watching us on YouTube. So we're here with the Fear Street trilogy, but we're going to be cutting up this into what, 2 episodes?
I want to say, yeah, probably.
So this episode, we're going to be talking about 1994, which is part 1, and then we're going to be talking about 78, which is part 2. The next episode, we'll go into 1666, part 3, and then 1994, I guess the part 2 version. So that'll be on the next episode. So we'll be sticking to that, so don't think we're gonna try and hit everything all in one.
Yeah, definitely not. This is not one of those episodes. This is not like a season special or anything like that. So this is just my and MJ's thoughts on the franchise. I also know it's a big movie that a lot of people or series or franchise, not a lot of people associate with like Summerween, which has become like a whole new thing. I remember in 2020 I would kind of make jokes about wanting Halloween during the summertime, and then you and I would go looking for stores that sold Halloween themed stuff.
Right.
And then a couple years later, there was this like term Summerween thrown out, and I loved it. And then come 2 years today, and you have actual retailers selling things for Summerween.
Exactly.
And I love it.
And I think Halloween is just big in general now. Like we talked about this on the last episode. It's everywhere. Like even the amount of Spirit Halloweens now that pop up. Like
there's more Spirit Halloweens. They're not as hard to come by. The website is year round as far as like their items go, as far as their clothing goes. Obviously, like it gets better, closer to the season, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's still there because I think you and I bought the murals that we have right behind the camera in January.
Yeah, right when we moved, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And then, like, a lot of the other stuff we bought while the store was actually open, but doesn't mean we didn't find them online. We did. I found our infamous Haddonfield sign and our Camp Crystal Lake sign
I was even telling
on the website as well.
I was telling a buddy of mine, Real to Real, or from Mark from the KRW network, go check him out. Makes awesome detailed scripted videos on YouTube. But he's redoing his whole setup, and I told him, like, just start looking for stuff now. Like, even if you have to store it away, and this goes for you all too, man. If y'all want to decorate for Halloween, like, start buying it now. That way it's ready to go. Like, just store it in your closet, your garage, whatever. And then when October hits, man, just put it all up, because you can get good prices on all this stuff. Like, it's not like gonna break the bank.
You don't have to wait until after the season passes or like the holiday passes for you to buy it, because that's usually when people really stock up. Right now prices are so low because it's not exactly the Burr months, if you will. It's still August, or at least when we're recording this right now.
Yeah.
But the second that it turns into September and then you have October, like, they're expensive. And then by the time Halloween's done, the majority of the decorations that you do want are out, or the stores aren't carrying them anymore. Honestly, just go for it now, because there's a lot of things that I waited on in the previous years that I still think about today. And kind of like what MJ and I have been really saying these last couple episodes, Halloween and the idea of like horror is very much within pop culture now, and I love it. But at the same time, I do see the better side of consumerism coming into play.
Exactly. So that brings us to the Fear Street, I guess, trilogy, which I don't think came out in theaters at all, right? It was strictly Netflix?
It was straight to Netflix movies. They were Netflix produced movies, because after I think a couple seconds into the movie, you see the classic Netflix sign and logo and like just sound go off.
They had a lot of hype though. They were almost marketed as theatrical films.
People were counting down on Twitter at the time, or X today. They were counting down for the next release.
Yeah.
I know you and I were also like pretty hyped up for the next movies after the first one, after 1994. You and I were marking out, geeking out, like
they had a trailer at the end. That was like the credit scene, right? A trailer for 78,
and then same thing for 1666.
Our hype after 94, and then of course seeing the trailer for 78 just like shot.
You and
up.
I just fucking went fucking crazy because I mean we saw two characters or actors that were in this franchise that are in Stranger Things, and then.
That's true. Yeah.
I think you and I were just curious about how the last movie was going to turn out altogether because everything was finally coming together. Mind you,
I just started to like the actress in Stranger Things, Maya Hawke.
Yeah.
The daughter of Ethan Hawke and I believe Uma Thurman. So
I think so.
Yeah. So seeing her in the opening was pretty cool. So yeah, and then also Sadie Sink. We saw her in 78. So. Very cool.
She's a great actress. I
like her a lot.
I think you and I kind of had the fear that she would be stereotyped as an actress locked in the 70s and 80s because of Stranger Things, but I think she's kind of gone out and done her own thing a bit, right?
Yeah.
And she still has a name for herself. She's still really big. I honestly love her. I think she was meant for the theaters.
No, yeah, I agree with that as well. But these movies all came out like pretty close to each other, right?
I think it was a couple of months.
Yeah, it says July 8th for 78, so that means 94 was June, so a month.
Yeah.
Wow, and then 66 was July 14th, also later in that month. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's why this franchise in and of itself is also considered like a Summerween franchise because it came out during the summertime.
Yeah.
But 78 for sure, because 78 carries a lot of the Friday the 13th vibes.
Yeah, no, definitely. But let's go ahead and get into it, man. So the first part, like we said, is 1994. It definitely, I guess, runs with the title. It gives off that aura, right? That vibe of the
every one of the film does.
Yeah.
Every single one of the films, which I truly appreciate because you don't see a lot of like the repeat cast members in the films until 1666 comes into play.
Right.
But whoever that takes on a role with these films really take on the decade. Like Dina is very 90s-esque as far as the way that she carries herself. Same with her brother on like a different side of the spectrum, and same goes for her friends. And even her partner, like the way that they go about seeing each other and dating each other is very much of the time.
Yeah.
It's not of today.
So 1994 is very 90s, obviously.
Clearly, my favorite decade.
And you actually put down that you said it was like a play on Scream. And I'm assuming the play on Scream there, for you guys not realizing it, is that they kind of got like a semi-big actress, or at least a semi-known actress on Netflix.
Yeah.
To be in the opening. And I guess not really gonna go crazy about spoilers on this because this is kind of old at this point. So sorry, but she dies. So she's the opening kill.
Yep.
And the whole situation does start off with the phone call and like an eerie, awkward phone situation. So very similar to like Scream, which came out in 96, I believe, with Drew Barrymore also being a big actress at the time, or a known actress, getting the opening kill. And it starts with a phone call.
Yeah.
So very famous there.
Yeah.
So the killer in this opening scene, which takes place in a mall, so cool, 90s vibes, neon,
very colorful pieces of furniture and wall decor,
the neon signs and everything. Yeah, I missed that, so I wish we could see that more.
There's only one place that I know where we live that kind of still carries that essence, but that's also just not a place that we can visit often.
Yeah. The killer is even wearing like a standard like Halloween costume. I think
my point with that was that in Scream, the police mention, and specifically Dewey mentions, that the whole Ghostface outfit that the current killers are running around with is a very standard Halloween costume that you can find at every rinky-dink shop, like even gas stations are selling them for costumes, which is such a weird concept to me.
I wish we lived near those gas stations to get a costume.
I don't know if that's like the exact quote. Please don't come after me. I'm very tired. But I do know that essentially the way that Dewey was making it seem was that these, or at least the Ghostface costume at the time, is very much something that is standard.
Yeah. And
same goes for this one. Like,
yeah,
this
definitely.
one was shown to be at multiple different shops within the mall, which I thought was really interesting.
I saw that too, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a very like black nightgownish, just like a typical...
Just a standard cloak and then a standard skull mask. Like, one could argue that the skull mask looks a lot like the skull mask in Season of the Witch, but that also like opens up a different can of worms.
That's probably also another homage too. I mean,
probably.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
But even before we get introduced to the killer, we do see that there's like a voice that seems to, you know, come up around, and it's the same one from, I guess, the phone call, but this time it's talking to Ryan. Who ends up becoming the killer, who's also the friend to Maya Hawke's character in the opening. So,
which then plays into the Scream, because the friends are the ones that are killing each other. A lot of big brain moves. Or either that, or I'm just making connections that really aren't there.
Fun little detail too is not just the voice that you hear, but you also start to see like flies start flying around Ryan.
Yes. Which is
an indication of what's about to happen to him. So
yeah, it raises the question, especially for a first time viewer, as to what the fuck is going on and why are there flies out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pass this over to Marva and she can carry on the rest of the before she passes it back to me.
This is so big. Okay. Anyway.
I'm just kidding.
No.
I wish I heard that. I'm just kidding.
Anyway. I think like you said, Maya Hawke, the character that she's playing, ends up getting killed, and then we see Ryan get shot in the head, and then he goes down, and then
it's the sheriff Nick Good that
kills him. Yeah, that takes the killing shot essentially. And long story short, we have the title card, and then that's when the movie essentially rolls out to how it's going to play out for the rest of the three movies, where you get acquainted to the main characters, at least of this film. It's Sam, Dina, Sarah Fier, Nick Good, Josh, Dina's brother and Dina's friends. Yeah. So
for y'all that don't remember, Sarah Fier is mentioned like twice, both I believe in the opening like thing into the title card, and then she's also brought up when the brother is talking to his friend via chat.
Yeah,
they mentioned Sarah Fier, the witch. So yeah,
the IM chat, the chat that he had by stealing internet from the neighbors. The AOL chat, bro.
Yeah, when Dina pulls up,
chat.
You know how much AOL cost? That brought back so many memories.
The fact that he was stealing it from his neighbor too, of all, I was like, what more do I need to make it feel like I'm back in my time? Regardless,
you weren't even born yet in '94.
I was born in the 90s. And you were just barely out the womb, bro. Why are you here talking shit?
Shit, I was in the world already, bro, making my mark.
Yeah, but with a month on you, that's it.
I was making my mark, marking my territory, bro.
That's not right. That's not fucking right. We're getting so sidetracked. Anyway, you get acquainted throughout all these characters that are consistent throughout the three franchises.
Yeah.
And then as the movie builds, you see Dina writing this note. It's a note to Sam, who we come to find out is her ex. First time watching it, I was actually very surprised to find out that Sam is actually a girl, but I really, 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 really liked it as well, because I'm just like, okay, like, people being gay is not a 2020 thing. It's been going on for a while, guys. Like, let's get on with the program. And this is what I meant whenever I said that, you know, the partnership is something that I thought was refreshing earlier on in this episode. So coming to discover that, I actually really liked it, and it piqued my interest even more, because I was like, okay, are they going to keep true to the times to where they can't be that open? It's only their close friends who know, like their family might suspect, and then their family is going to react very poorly to it. And that's exactly what happened. It was very stereotypical, like 90s-esque, which I hate, because I honestly don't feel like you should be ashamed of who you love. But at the same time, it was so accurate that it broke my heart, and I just kind of sat back and I was like, all right, I guess we're gonna continue.
Especially to know that the mom wasn't with it. Like, yeah, it was a lot of stuff like that.
There was a lot of things. So adding this layer of like tension already, you come to find out that the two main cities within this franchise hate each other. And they have...
Bro, they hate each other.
Like, it's generational type of hate. The adults don't get along. The kids don't get along. The teenagers don't get along. Like, the two towns is Sunnyvale and Shadyside. And Sunnyvalers hate Shadysiders, and Shadysiders hate being stereotyped. So you can see where I'm going with this. Essentially, I think, like, about this time in the story, you have the two rival schools going at it with the rival towns at a rally because of Ryan Torres passing with Nick Good shooting him, the cop.
Also because of Heather too, which was Maya Hawke's character.
Yeah, which was Maya Hawke's character. And the rally is to essentially like calm everybody down. And mind you, I'm pretty sure it's happening because that mall was right in the middle of the two city lines.
I think so, yeah.
So the assembly had to happen with both cities present. But during the middle of it, a couple of Sunnyvaler football players like yell out or call out how this is standard. They really shouldn't be standing around here in mourning, and that Shadysiders always ruin things. And then a couple of Shadysiders rebuttal and retaliate. And then it starts a fucking fist fight. So look, I've heard and I've watched and I've seen a lot of shit about rival schools and how like students will not get along, but it was never this fucking bad. Like if somebody died, they died, and people understood that wasn't okay, no matter how much you hated the rival school, unless like you were the person that did it and you're a douchebag and you haven't been caught. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. I don't know. It was very shocking the first time.
So when the Shadysiders are going back home on a bus, and keep in mind...
This is after the altercation, by the way.
And keep in mind that it was also because they canceled the football game, too.
They canceled the football game because of the fight?
No, because of the...
Oh, because of the death?
That's why the rally was happening.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why the tension was very, like, built up, too.
High already, yeah. Okay.
So Shadysiders are going back home on a bus. And a couple of kids, mainly the main one, and then Sam, the girl who used to be in a relationship with the main character, Dina, they're pulling up on them. They start throwing bottles at the bus, and they're really carrying it on. And also, Sam's boyfriend and his homeboy are wearing skull masks.
Yeah.
Again, showing just how accessible that costume is.
Mm-hmm.
Probably got it from that mall.
Probably either that or got it from another Halloween shop.
Another Halloween shop,
standard, right?
And Dina wants to go ahead and retaliate because at this point she's saying fuck Sam, fuck her boyfriend, fuck Sunnyvale.
Yeah, because essentially at this point, because Sam and Dina have a fight and they have an altercation at this rally, which funny enough, as their altercation gets more heated, the altercation at the rally also gets heated. So Sam makes it abundantly clear to Dina that she no longer wants anything to do with her, that she's moved on, she's living her own life. Like, yeah. Dina can't really keep living on in the past and like being hung up on it. And Dina's just kind of like, well, I know who you really are. You're just going around faking shit and you're just living a life because you want it to be easier for you. Essentially saying like, she kept on throwing the line that she was the only Shadysider known to be able to move to Sunnyvale because good things are like, bad things always happen to Shadysiders. So while their fight's happening, they stop because of the rally outside. And it's very obvious that Dina and Sam still haven't worked things out, but throw this scene into the mix and Dina just gets tipped over the edge, which is why she's just kind of like, fuck it. I'm gonna go ham.
So at this point, she wants to retaliate against her, and her nose starts bleeding when she pulls like the Gatorade bottle, like the big one, you know, or maybe it was water and I don't know what was in there, but her nose starts bleeding and that throws her off. So she ends up like dropping it. It hits the car, and it hits the car so bad with all this water or whatever, like fluids, and then the barrel itself, throws the car off, goes into the woods. And then at this point, the only person who seems to be conscious right now is, I think, Sam, even though her boyfriend isn't dead. Yeah. He's just, I guess, knocked out.
Because of the impact.
Impact, right? So then Sam starts to walk out, and then funny enough, her nose is bleeding too. Mm-hmm. She bleeds on the floor, and then we get like this 2000s Linkin Park AMV of like everything that happened like in the past. Like she's getting
a bunch of visions.
Right? And we find out later that it is because she bled on the area where Sarah Fear is buried, but we'll get into that more when the movie goes on. So that happens. And then the cops show up and they're trying to make sense of the entire situation, right? Like, wait, somebody at fault? Did something happen? What happened? You know? But all in all, nothing is resolved. And at this point, Dina decides that she wants to check on Sam because she knows she was in the wrong and she still cares for Sam.
Right. It's very obvious.
Yeah. She wants to check on her, make sure nothing, in case something serious did happen to her because of the car crash that was caused over that whole thing. So Sam and Dina then get into an altercation at the hospital. And the only reason she's even at the hospital is because this entire night, both Dina and her friend, I forget the name of her friend. It's,
I didn't write him down.
Oh, you didn't write him down?
No.
I forget the name of the friends.
It's the other two. It's the cheerleader and then the mascot guy.
Yeah, which I'm surprised we didn't write it down because they're in the entire fucking movie.
Sorry, guys.
So we get them, getting almost kind of like stalked by this person in a Halloween costume. And it happens to be the exact same one that Ryan Torres wore when he committed the murders. And it also happens to be the one that Sam's boyfriend was wearing too.
Yeah, and his friend.
And his friend. They're getting stalked by this person in this costume, right? Or at least they think it's a person, or they think it might be Sam's boyfriend. And that's what leads Dina going to the hospital because she thinks it's bullshit that this is happening.
Yeah, she thinks essentially that Sam's boyfriend is just making fun of the whole situation. So, she already called the hospital to try and talk to Sam. Sam's mom shut her down. So seeing this and thinking that it's Sam's boyfriend just kind of pushed her over the edge. And she said, fuck it. She's going to figure out what's going on for herself. And that's what leads to the fight that they have again in the hospital.
And we find out that it's not the boyfriend because homeboy gets stabbed like immediately. Like
through the back and into the stomach.
AB conversation, he saw his way out of it, bro.
Yeah.
Like, he was gone.
Yeah.
And at that point, Dina's convinced. It's not the
Sam's
boyfriend.
It's not Sam's boyfriend at all.
And then instinctively she grabs Sam and they get the fuck out of there. They're getting chased. And I guess this really isn't like important to note, but it is kind of funny just to show the character of Dina's brother. So when Dina's little brother is like helping out the two friends get candy and he does like a cool little way to get the candy out of the machine, he mentions, when did y'all get into the candy business? Drugs. And they say they're just doing it to get out of here. And he just says, take me with you. And it made the whole conversation awkward. I'm sure y'all...
I felt so bad for him.
I'm sure y'all don't think that's funny with me just describing it that way. But when y'all see the scene, if y'all watch the film, it's hilarious.
Literally like that.
Literally. So they barely make it out of the hospital. And Josh, who is Dina's brother, suggests that the killer they keep seeing is a pawn of Sarah Fier. And Dina doesn't reject it because she saw the killer unmasked when they were being chased earlier in the hospital. And it was Ryan.
Who's dead. Yeah. And he actually had like a bloodshot wound to his forehead with all the...
Exactly.
Gunshot wound.
Which is interesting because it's not even the actual body that's been reanimated. It's like something that... We'll get into this later, but it's like that big thing, like that big pulsing heart that creates the bodies, right?
I guess so. I think essentially the second that these people die, they are fully pawns. I
see.
They get pushed over to the edge to where somebody from Sunnyvale has to kill them, and then once they're killed, that's whenever like the whole contract is sealed and they're fully sold to be puppets of the devil, I guess.
Kate and Simon, those are the name of the people.
Kate and Simon, the two friends?
Kate and Simon, yeah.
Kate and Simon.
I wanted to make note of that because I didn't want to keep saying it over and over because they do have a lot of important scenes.
Yeah, they do. Kate and Simon do. They do.
Kate and Simon, bro.
Kate's a little questionable, so is Simon. I thought Simon was a little fruity at first, but I mean, it's all good.
Why do you say Kate's questionable? Because of the scene with the little brother?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to look at it from that point. Like, she's 17. He's like, what, 14, 15? I'm just saying, brother, that happened a lot back in the day. I'm not saying I condone it, but all I'm saying is there was a couple of high schoolers back when I was in high school who were dating like 23-year-olds. That was crazy.
All right, we're going to keep reading.
That was crazy.
We're going to keep reading.
If you are watching this, I'm sorry for snitching on y'all.
We're going to keep reading.
So one of Dina's friends, Simon, he happens to go take a piss on his own in the middle of nowhere in a horror movie, mind you. So when they just got done getting chased by a killer, mind you.
Yeah, I think they're not necessarily in the middle of nowhere, like in an alleyway, but I'm gonna digress. That was my bad.
I think they're supposed to be in front of a police station, but he wanders off to where
they're
he
in
looks.
front of a police station, but they're in front of a police station after they hijacked a fucking EMT truck
Yeah.
from the hospital.
Well, but all I'm saying is when Simon
He just steps away to go take a piss.
it looks like he's like in some dark like 50s alleyway. Like,
Yeah.
like what the fuck?
He just kind of whips it out, takes a piss, looks over, and then hears
Speaking of
singing
which,
and just walks around.
A killer from the 50s.
Yep.
Who is already dead as well. And we
Ruby
saw
Lane.
her. We saw her name earlier in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it confirms not just the group's theory, but Josh's theory mainly. That these killers are being brought back because Simon was attacked by Ruby Lane. So, which by the way, I read somewhere that Ruby Lane is almost like an homage to Freddy.
Yeah.
Because the kind of burnt faces,
The
razor blade fingers that Freddy specifically uses in that movie, they call it that. Instead of just saying knives on hands, they say razors. She walks around with razors, and they both sing, or he doesn't sing the song, but he has a song associated to him.
Mm-hmm.
She has a song associated to her.
Yeah.
Like when you hear her singing, you know it's
time to go.
yeah, you know it's her. So after some brainstorming, the group finds out that the first mass murder for Shadyside started in 1666, which is the title for part 3, and also the original, I guess, pawn, right, for Seraphir. Or not for Seraphir, but for whatever this curse is, essentially.
At this time, it's Seraphir.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
No spoilers. No spoilers. These movies are old as fuck.
That's why I said at this time it's Seraphir. Later on down the line, we come to find out exactly who.
Sam then confides to the rest of the group, saying that when the crash happened and she got out of the car, she saw a bunch of visions, the A and B, Linkin Park shit.
She just like kept it to herself until this point, by the way, which I think I would tell people when I see this kind of shit.
Maybe she told her boyfriend.
I don't know, bro. She was trying to keep some, I'm from Sunnyvale.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm all happy all the time.
You wouldn't have, no. You're right. And
he also would have made fun of her and dumped her right away.
Like what?
He probably would have dumped her right away too.
Yeah, either that or just called her crazy.
Yeah.
So that it's,
or both.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. You just. It
was with the car crash.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw visions too.
Yeah. I saw visions of us.
So once that happens, she assumes that it could have been from Sarah herself. The gang decides to go back to the crash site and see what could have caused Sam to have those visions.
Excuse me.
It's funny because they do something here, actually, not 10, but they actually do something that a lot of horror movies try to tell you to do. And I like the fact that they kind of called it out. They want to bury the body again and lay it to rest. On some poltergeist shit.
When I heard that, I was like, wow, this is slightly like woke horror, but not really.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
So when the group stumbles upon the remains of Seraphir at her gravesite, they realize that all the ghosts are after Sam because not only did she touch Sarah's remains, but she also bled on them. Which is why earlier Ryan Torres, or the reincarnated Ryan Torres, the pawn, was like searching for or through Kate's laundry to find the blood that Simon had on him that was from
earlier on in the night.
From Sam, right?
Yeah, it was whenever the crash first happened. Because we come to find out that Simon never changed his shirt, went to work, and came back, which is also another reason why Ruby Lane targets him.
That's right, yeah.
He had blood on his shirt. So, and I think Dina still had some blood on her, especially after wiping away Sam's bloody nose. So most of the people at this point, aside from Kate and Josh, had Sam's blood on them. And that's when they kind of devise a plan.
Yeah. They come up with this, and the plan actually is pretty dope. I feel like if these characters weren't immortal, they would have like won. Yeah, essentially.
If they had a lot of plot armor, but what I liked about this movie is that it kept it very realistic.
Yeah,
there was no full happy ending.
So they come up with a plan to use the blood to trap the monsters or the killers, and then just blow them up, essentially. Yeah. So, very good plan. It actually does work for the most part. Mm-hmm. Leading up to it, it's a little bit weird. We're not going to touch up too much on it, but essentially there's a sex scene with Sam and Dina. There's an implied sex scene with
Josh and Kate,
or at least they hooked up.
And Simon does his own thing.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to dive too much into that, but there is some good character building there. There is some good, I guess, interactions with the characters. They're pretty much a team now. Like, they're all together. Like, there isn't no
They're all together.
there isn't no separation that, like, Josh is a nerd. Like, they're looking down
I know,
on him.
because Simon is always poking fun at him. But
Yeah.
you also kind of put the headcanon that Simon seems to be going after Kate, but Kate also seems interested in Josh, which is why Simon is always bashing on him. At least that's the headcanon that I make.
Which he kind of stops once he finds out that they did something, you know?
Yeah.
So he kind of does, like, at least respect that a little bit. But anyways, that happens. We're not going to dive too much into that. So they set the traps. It pretty much works. All the killers run into the bathroom, trap them. Sam gets out, blows it up, and they're all destroyed on some Majin Buu shit. But just like Majin Buu,
they all come back.
Yeah, the pieces start moving and they come back. So the first attempt works, but it fails at the same time. They regroup, like, in this. It wasn't a janitor's closet, but it was like some area in the school.
Some room.
Yeah, some room. Josh tells the group that there has been only one survivor of Sarah Fear, and it's C. Berman. So Dina is, like, frantically trying to make a call to C. Berman. She's not picking up. They leave a crazy ass voicemail, and at that point, they're wanting to just kind of let Sam die.
Simon and Kate are ready to turn Sam in, and Josh seems to almost be siding with them slightly, but Dina's the only one who says, no, we're going to keep trying. And they devise of a second plan, which is, let's go ahead and do Sam how C. Berman survived, which is she died for a while, or they died.
They uncover that, right? Like, they realize that, no,
C. Berman died. That's the only
how she
reason,
survived.
That's how she survived. So Kate and Simon have the bright idea of going to Simon's place, his work, and doping up Sam, getting her to OD.
They again lay another trap. This time it's at a grocery store. They pull up.
It's the store that that Simon works at.
So they pull everyone together and they have Sam OD while everyone is, like, I guess, trying to stall the killers.
Laying the traps. They smear Sam's blood all over them. They have, like, a whole bunch of different things that they're doing to make sure the killers go after them. And the killers do. And
okay, so Simon, when the killers get there, things kind of go wrong. So then it kind of turns into them just stalling the killers and getting them away from Sam while they're trying to kill Sam over there.
Yeah.
Dina, anyways. So
they give Sam, like, 5 different kinds of pills and at least 5 pieces of each, and they're all, like, fucking crazy. So it's a lot of pills to swallow, literally.
So Simon gets killed in a regular way, like axe to the head, nothing too crazy. Yeah. However, Kate,
her kill was probably one of the most creative ones that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, at the time, that was probably the most creative kill I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time. It was insane. Like, seeing, like, what is it again? It's a
bread slicer. She is giving, I think it's Ryan's ghost a hard time.
Yeah.
And Ryan, like, knocks her back and onto this conveyor belt, and this conveyor belt has, like, a bread slicing machine. Yeah. And we see Kate's head get sliced like a loaf of bread.
It's insane, dude.
It is. I would like to compare it to a watered down version of Art the Clown's kill in Terrifier. As far as, like, sawing somebody down. Because never in my life did I ever think that I would be afraid of a bread slicer.
Yeah, it's bad, man.
Like, literally,
just rewatching it recently made us go, that's still a good kill.
It still holds up a candle to a lot of different things that I've seen.
And we've seen Terrifier too.
A few times. So I'm pretty excited for Terrifier 3. I'm not gonna lie.
Later this year, I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. But it's on comparison to that, which I'm saying, giving that, like, a high praise, because Terrifier is probably one of the bloodiest, one of the most gruesome films I have watched to date. Mind you, like, the detail of the prop after Kate's killed is insane. You see the brain matter, you see the white matter, you see, like, the skull, you see the skin, you even see, like, portions of the eye cut in certain ways that you would think a bread slicer. Like, they really put a lot of detail into it, and you can tell. And the actress for Kate sells it whenever she's being cut through, because every single time I watch that scene, I always clench And I am anticipating probably one of the most worst kills top 10 kills I have seen on screen.
No, I completely agree with you on that. I'm 100% there. And everyone does get killed except for I guess Josh and Dina, because Sam technically does die.
Yeah.
So eventually Sam dies, and that's able to stop the rest of the killers because they have Ruby Lane there. They have
and they're all running towards Sam and Dina at this point. And Josh is like right about to get sliced up himself. So
and she finally dies.
She finally drowns in nasty
because the pills couldn't do it quick enough.
They couldn't, and Sam just wouldn't have any more of the pills. And then they decided to drown her in some like lobster water, like really old lobster water. Anyway, I think that was probably one of the most gross scenes I have seen.
We had something to say about this movie once we get done with this, like breaking it down.
Yeah.
Which we'll finish right now. So when she dies, the killers just kind of like fade away. They're gone. Sam and Dina and I guess Josh are basically saved. But before that, they do the EpiPen shit and try and bring her back.
Dina puts, I think, like 12 EpiPens to Sam and like keeps pumping her chest in hopes of bringing her back. Mind you, Sam is already overdosed and she also was drowned on top of it. So I understand, but that's a lot of fucking EpiPens.
How many are you supposed to give somebody when something like that happens?
At most 2, and then you take them to the ER. Like, this bitch was dead.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Ugh.
But
and when she comes back, she throws up all nasty.
Everything is pretty much okay at this point, except for the sad part that they're gonna pin all the murders on Kate and Simon.
Yep.
They're pretty much calling it like 2 druggies who just kind of went ballistic.
Went fucking crazy.
And
like OD.
It sucks. Even I think Dina acknowledges that it sucks. I don't want my friends to be blamed for this, but
there's nothing that she can do.
Yeah, there's nothing that she can do or say. Like, they're not going to believe her. Like, she'll get thrown into a fucking insane asylum. Or, good thing she didn't because of who we find out who Nick Good is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, so all that plays out. Everyone goes back to living their lives. Sam and Dina are now together. Sam told off her mom and let it be known that this is her relationship and she 100% has to be behind it. And if she doesn't, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, essentially. Hi, Sam.
Yeah. And then Josh is reconnecting with his AOL, I guess, girlfriend or something, doing his thing. So when a nice ending like that plays out, but it's a part of a trilogy, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sam ends up getting her... We see Sam's name written on the wall. And
like etched into stone almost.
Etched into stone, yeah. She comes back as a pawn, essentially, or she is a pawn.
She gets turned... We literally see her transform into a pawn, very similar to Ryan in the beginning of the film.
But even more in depth.
Yeah, this one we actually get to see it because Ryan's was in the dark. Because when we see Ryan, he is in a shop very much like Spencer's. It's very heavy on the black lights and the UV lights. This is Sam in like a household with lights everywhere. And you literally see her transition. She opens her eyes and transitions.
Yeah. She goes after Dina, but Dina is able to subdue her. At the same time, I think Dina receives a phone call from C. Berman, and that kind of like plays all in together. And then she goes and tells Josh what happens. And I also like that Josh stuck up for Simon and Kate too in the AOL chat.
Yeah, because I think his like AOL girlfriend kind of implies that they were druggies, and then Josh says no, Simon and Kate were good strong people. And brave and good people. Like, they had good intentions. Let's not dishonor their memory, essentially.
And with that, the movie ends, and then we get the, I guess, trailer / teaser to 78 that's in the end credits. And when we saw that, you and I were hyped. But I'll go ahead and say this. I think 94 is probably... 94 is probably a good number 2 in the trilogy. Maybe it can go back and forth with another one of the films, but I don't think it's the best one.
I don't think so either.
But I will say it's a good film. I would give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I do respect that the film has a good idea of how to be grimy and how to be and not be clean. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of scenes where people are spitting up.
Yeah.
They're vomiting.
Yeah.
Marvin and I actually recently watched the movie Tarot, and like there's a scene where like someone throws up, but they cut when they throw up and then cut back and then they look fine. Like they're like, but
and they're
like
just wiping away their mouth with their
but there's
hand.
nothing there. In this movie, you see everything. Like what Marva said, there's a very gross vomiting scene, and like even the scene with the lobsters in the aquarium, like not the aquarium, the little
tank, water
like,
tank, nasty ass water tank. Oh,
like the movie is not afraid to be grimy, and I do respect that.
Yeah, and it's for all three of them. So don't worry.
And I'll let Marva give her thoughts before I pass her the iPad. So 94, what are your thoughts overall?
I would say 7.5. I think I scored a little bit higher than you, but that's also because I truly enjoy this franchise, and I feel like I have a certain amount of nostalgia towards it.
Oh, the music taste is good.
The music taste is phenomenal. Beginning, middle, end, all of it. The custom ones, the ones where they had to pay like music rights for.
Iron Maiden, Machine Head, bro.
I loved it. Some songs were being played in that film that I hadn't heard in years. And apparently not since the last time I had watched the film, because whatever fucking reason, my brain didn't register that, hey, let me go ahead and add this to my Spotify playlist because I forgot about these songs.
I am hoping that when Stranger Things season 5 comes out, that we get some Iron Maiden.
Like, I pray.
I would love to hear like Fear of the Dark or like...
I mean, we got Metallica.
Yeah, so and I think Stranger Things takes place a little later in the 80s, so we should maybe get some
probably get Iron Maiden for sure.
Like, now that was...
Knowing what an Iron Maiden is now, like for real, I don't... That name goes hard.
That name goes hard, yeah. But yeah, I'm with her. Like I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10. Maybe not 7.5 like her, but I think 7's a good number.
7.5 for me, yeah.
But I'm going to pass her this so she can take over with 78.
Yeah, but funny enough, this is one of your favorite films. I think this is like top for you.
Yeah,
right?
I think so, yeah.
I like this one too, but I think I score 1666 higher, and then it's 78, and then it's 94. Funny enough. Mine is almost in like reverse order.
Okay, mine, I was going to wait to do it at the end, but mine is 78, 66, 94.
Yeah.
Because that's the one I said can go back and forth with 94 is 66. Because I actually, when we rewatched it, I ended up liking 66 a lot more.
I loved 66 from the get-go. 78, I also really like. It very much has that like 80s aesthetic and like 70s aesthetic, like 70s, early 80s aesthetic. But at the same time, I feel like I've been so overplayed by that aesthetic and it's just been like worn out that I don't know. I can't like enjoy it as much, but at the same time I still do. Don't get me wrong, 78 is like a good standalone movie on its own if you cut out the very beginning and you only consider C. Berman or like Ziggy's flashback. But I also feel like because of the fact that it can stand as a standalone film, it kind of takes away from it to a certain degree. But that's just my personal opinion. There are days where I rate 78 a whole lot higher. I just think right now I'm standing my ground with 66 like as being my number one. 78 is a very, very, very close second.
You're going to be hyped in for the next episode when you talk about 66.
Definitely, for sure. But jumping back into 78, Dina, Josh, and Sam finally make it to see Berman's place, and this is after Dina has tied up Sam. And the trio, or I guess the duo, because Sam's kind of locked up in Dina's trunk.
Tied up with a phone, bro.
Tied up with an old phone cord. They get the full story of C. Berman, and they really want to try and figure out if there's a way to reverse the state that Sam is currently in. At this point, we come to find out that C. Berman is very fixated on time. So she has a calendar that writes down literally how many days have passed. I think it's like 5,390 something. And then she also has multiple clocks displayed all throughout the house that go off hours, like each hour at a time for her to go and do something and take care of something. So it almost seems like as if she's secluding herself from society, but also using certain tactics to make sure that she continues to function.
If she had Alexis throughout her house, man, it'd be crazy.
Oh, she'd have multiple. She would have at least 3 per room, I would say. But she doesn't, which is fine. And I think it's a whole lot better. So C. Berman, or I'm going to refer to as Ziggy because that's how she's referred to for the rest of the film, dives into the summer of how she lost her sister, the summer to which she died and came back to life. And she essentially survived this attack, if you will, from Sarah Fear.
Since we're not doing spoilers, before Marva continues, I'm actually going to bring up that the film does this situation, and this is what Marva pointed out to me when we first watched it. that she goes by C. Berman, but you're supposed to believe that it's not Ziggy that survived. It's Ziggy's sister
Cindy.
because her name is Cindy. But we come to find out at the very end of the film that her name is Christine, right? Or something like that. So the whole idea is that Ziggy was the one who died and Cindy was the one who survived. But no, it's actually not. The plot twist is that Ziggy's name is also C. Berman, Christine. So,
Exactly.
But it's easier just to refer to her as Christine, as Ziggy.
Yeah, because essentially, C. Berman is just really long. Anyway, when the flashback starts, you come to find out that Ziggy and her older sister, Cindy, were at camp that year, and that Cindy was a counselor and hoping to save up and go to college. Essentially, you come to find out that these two sisters are on the opposite side of the same coin. Cindy is very much an optimist, very much like clean presenting, and how Ziggy puts it later on in the film, like as if she's trying to be from Sunnyvale, while Ziggy fully embraces the fact that she's from shady side. Like, she has the mentality for it. She's always like, if you want to put a label on it, more so pessimistic.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's neither here nor there. Everybody deals with trauma in their own certain way, if you will.
Right.
So moving aside from that, because that's a big factor within the film, like the two of them not getting along and also have very different viewpoints of the world, at least the world that they live in. So Ziggy seems to be very much a target for the shady-siders that are her age. They're constantly calling her a witch. They're cutting at her. They're burning her. They're tying her up on the very tree that Sarah Vera was rumored to hang from. And the person who comes to her aid is none other than Nick Good, the same Nick Good from 1994. Ziggy and Nick Good have this like very interesting banter, and Ziggy essentially goes and sees Nurse Lane, the mother of Ruby Lane. And it's obvious that Nurse Lane is not 100%. Like, she's already rumored to not be fully there or fully sane, but at this point in time, she's like almost talking and holding herself in a way that even Ziggy's worried. So
remember that point you brought up earlier in the episode about the Sunnyvalers and Shady-siders?
Mm-hmm.
Ziggy almost being burned to death by a Sunnyvaler is a good example of just how generational that hatred is.
Yes.
They hung her up, bro, like a fucking witch, and was like gonna burn her.
Put her hands up together, hung her up, and then this one girl, I forgot her name, she grabbed a lighter and tried to light Ziggy on fire from like her underarm area, essentially. I sat back the first time and I think that really settled in on how much they really truly hate each other.
But they just do not care for, like, the Sunnyvalers just do not care for the Shady-siders.
They will villainize and like use them as a scapegoat and use them as a way to just kind of let all their evil go, because the Shady-siders in their head are evil. It's really sad.
Very dark.
Very.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Nurse Lane just seems to be mumbling, saying that something along the lines of like how you sometimes need to do a bad thing in order to prevent bad events from occurring. But it's very vague and like it gets you very confused, not just as a viewer, but you can see Ziggy herself is also confused. This whole interaction gets interrupted with Cindy barging in because she finally got word from the counselor who broke up that whole scene earlier in the film that Ziggy is like really pushing his boundaries and that he's really close to kicking her out.
Yeah.
Cindy goes in, and Cindy doesn't really seem to acknowledge the fact that Ziggy is at the nurse's office again or trying to figure out why she's there. She just only seems to be scolding her, saying that their mom can't really take care of Ziggy if she gets kicked out and that Cindy really needs this job. And then that's when Ziggy really starts to take the blows at Cindy, saying like she's trying way too hard to be somebody that she's not and that she just needs to be real with herself. And you can really tell that their relationship is strained, like heavily strained. Cindy doesn't really seem to check in on Ziggy, and Ziggy seems to just kind of like consistently disregard Cindy's wants because of the fact that she doesn't give her younger sister the time of day. But that also plays into effect a whole lot more later into the film. Once that's done, the two sisters part ways and the bullies target Ziggy again. But this time they let her know that they messed up her cabin, essentially. And that's where Ziggy runs to her cabin and she finds out what the damage is. The movie then cuts back to Cindy, and she's confiding to Tommy, her boyfriend, about the relationship that that she has with Ziggy while cleaning the cafeteria or the mess hall, and that's when things get a little weird.
Did you talk about the red moss that was growing in the outhouse?
There was red moss in the outhouse. Yeah,
that's where we first, I think, see Cindy, right before the guy comes and gets her.
Yeah,
she's cleaning like the outhouse with Tommy, and like there's this red like gunk that's growing there that supposedly has been there forever
for
and
years. Yeah,
they can't clean it out, and that plays like a part later in how Cindy's actually able to kind of get around the camp. But we'll get in that later. But I just wanted to make note of that.
Yeah. Essentially, like, once things get weird, Cindy essentially just rips up a sponge and then goes looking in a supply closet. Can't find the sponge. Comes back out because she hears some, like, movement. There's this drawer that's left open and it has a bunch of knives. And then she's calling out for Tommy and Tommy's not answering. Tommy pops up, scares Cindy. But then there's another figure that pops up, and it's Nurse Lane holding a knife, saying how she's really sorry she's about to kill Tommy, but it's for the greater good.
Right.
And then that's when Tommy stumbles back, hits his head on one of, like, the little benches, and gets, like, head trauma, if you will. And that's when Nurse Lane is escorted out of the camp, strapped up to an EMT bed with cops there, too. A whole bunch of Sunnyvalers are constantly complaining, saying how, like, Shady Siders are always ruining things and that Nurse Lane was bound to snap because her daughter was fucking crazy too.
Yeah.
Which breaks my heart. And then that's when Cindy seems to find interest as to what was wrong with Nurse Lane. The movie then cuts back to the counselors and everybody going back to the mess hall. And that's when the infamous color war is announced. The Sunnyvalers, excuse me, are essentially taking this as a literal war. Like, the counselor, the leader of the Sunnyvalers, is saying how, like, Shady Siders are evil. It's good versus evil. It's like dark versus light. It's like good versus bad. It's so fucking stupid. And they all take it so seriously.
It's mainly just little kids participating in this.
That's it, too.
Minus the counselor.
That's it. And, like, people within Ziggy's age group are their last year of attending the camp, and by next year they should be being counselors themselves, which I still find very strange in how seriously they're taking all this, but that's neither here nor there. And Cindy notices that Ziggy is not at this meeting. So Cindy goes looking for Ziggy, and then comes to find out that Ziggy is in the arts and crafts room, like, grabbing a pint of blood. And Cindy is really trying to figure out if Ziggy knew anything about Nurse Lane. And Ziggy kind of gets bitter at this point because earlier on in the film, you see her try to connect with Cindy and trying to put the pieces together about why Nurse Lane is as agitated and as irritated as she is.
Right.
And Cindy doesn't seem to really care, but now she does. And Ziggy even makes a comment about it. She's like, oh, so now you care, now that it's convenient to you. And then that catapults a whole nother fight to where Cindy ends up calling her a monster. And then this is when the viewers and Cindy herself get a view of just how bad it is for Ziggy staying at this camp, and two, just how bad she's being targeted.
Right.
And how she's constantly being called a monster as well, especially at camp. And I think it finally settles in for Cindy that she really hasn't been there for her sister. But she still is on this weird bend of trying to make things make sense. So she decides that she's going to go investigate Nurse Lane's place on her own. Convinces Tommy to get the keys for the infirmary.
Yep.
They sneak into the infirmary, but not without running into Alice, a character that we met earlier on in the film.
During a sex scene. We didn't really bring it up because
it's a very blatant sex scene. It's a very obvious sex scene.
They were getting it on, bro, while Cherry Bomb was playing in the background.
Yeah, I saw ass cheeks. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But essentially, Alice is there along with her boyfriend because they want to get drugs, and the two groups, Tommy and Cindy, and Alice and her boyfriend, meet at the infirmary unintentionally. And Cindy comes across, like, a bottle of pills, which is called L484. And then she also finds, like, a book that Nurse Lane was using. Alice swipes it from her, finds out that the book contains a whole bunch of information about Sarah Fear. And then Alice and her boyfriend try and get high off of the same drugs that Nurse Lane was taking, the L4-8-4, which you come to find out later that it's acetaminophen or Tylenol, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But Alice has the bright idea of like looking through the book, and she can't really piece things together all too well. Cindy eventually gets the book from her and realizes that there's a map within the little diary that she had, that Nurse Lane had, and the map seems to layer on what is called later the Union, along with the current Camp Nightshade. Or Nightside. I forgot what it's called.
Nightshade, I believe.
Nightshade.
Yeah. That's a dope name for a camp.
Oh, 100%. And I don't know. You come to find out that this camp was it was laid out on the same land as the first settlement, and that a lot of the events that these kids had learned in history class occurred on these very campgrounds. And Nurse Lane had made a map about where Sarah Sphere's body could have potentially be buried, along with her hand as well. And Alice,
it's all like around that tree, right? Like that.
It's around the tree.
A very famous tree. We forgot to mention that. That's also in the middle of the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't know until 1666 that was the same tree. Funny enough.
Well, we see the tree in the mall, but yeah, we didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know at the time.
One. Yeah.
But long story short, Alice essentially wants to follow the map to Sarah Fear's lair, comes to find Sarah Fear's lair along with everybody else, and then that's when things continue to get weirder and weirder with Tommy. Mind you, there's been a lot of scenes to where Tommy is hearing voices, or Tommy is like just phasing in and out of reality, and at this point in time you can tell he's just losing grip of reality more and more.
Yeah, and I don't think he ever fully brings it up, because I think he just blames it on his head, right?
Yeah.
He hit his head, so yeah. But no, yeah, he just keeps like touching his head. He keeps like just sticking to himself. You can tell he's not the Tommy from earlier in the film.
No, he's like very unsure of himself. And it's very strange. And as you as an audience member are noticing this, Alice seems to have come across something that has really shaken her up, which is a wall full of stones with names etched into them, and they're names of all the previous killers of Shadyside, with the most current one being Tommy, Cindy's boyfriend. And then that's when everything, at least for me, started to piece together. Nurse Lane wanted to kill Tommy. Why was she saying she wanted to do something bad for the greater good? Yeah. She wanted to kill Tommy to prevent him from killing everybody. And then once everything starts to click for you, and Alice is saying this out loud, that's Tommy snaps.
And right when they're heading back, that's when they see Tommy grab the axe.
Yeah.
Because I believe the guy had already turned his back to Tommy. So Tommy walks up to him. What are you doing, bro? And then boom.
Starts chopping him up.
And it's like pieces. Multiple, dude. It's not just a one-hit quitter. Like he drops him and keeps going right in front of Alice. And right in front of Cindy. And that forces them to go back into the cave. Because they can't escape.
Essentially, yeah. Because I think Tommy is just going crazy, and these two girls are trying to figure out a way to get out of this mess, and they can't because Tommy is blocking the way along with Alice's currently dead boyfriend.
So they could have gotten out easily there, but they couldn't because of Tommy, so they have to dive deeper into
They run into the altar area where you find this like devil's mark onto the ground. Yeah. And Cindy ends up pushing over the altar because she finds like a little passageway in there, walks through there, makes the wall collapse, and then that's how the two girls are able to put space between themselves and Tommy. And then the movie really starts to like dive in further into the detail. I'm going to try and say this real quick, not because I'm tired of talking about this film, just more so I don't want this episode to be too long. But to sum it all up, these girls are looking at the little diary that Nurse Lane made about Sarah Fear. And they're using the devil's mark, or the scar that was made whenever the pact was made with the devil, as a map. And Cindy pieces this all together after the two of them have a fight, after her and Alice have a fight, and she notices that all these tunnels, all these lines come to one point, what seems to be the center of this mark, or the heart of this mark. And that literally comes to be the case where once these girls stumble upon this area, they see a heart, like a giant beating piece of organ, imitating a heart. with black goo coming out of it and like flies moving with it and being on it, and it makes my skin crawl just thinking about it.
It's really gross.
It's not the most appetizing thing to see.
It's like some
all.
Resident Evil shit, bro. Like the movie stuff. I don't know about the games, but
it's similar to the games too. Like it was appalling. And I commend the directors and the creators and the producers because they did a very good job of doing this. This pulsing flesh or pounding flesh, whatever the fuck you want to call it, seems to have the same voice that we hear earlier on in 94 that's whispering to Ryan. But this time it's calling out to Alice. Alice reaches out and touches this piece of flesh and starts to see the same visions that Sam did earlier on in 1994. But the only difference there is that once she lets go of the piece of flesh, she starts seeing all the victims of the killers, not the killers themselves, the victims of the killers.
Yeah.
And she is marking out, going crazy, screaming, and rightfully so. I mean, it's very obvious that she is well affiliated and educated whenever it comes to drug use, but this is something that she was not ready for. And that, to me, was even scarier because I've done psychedelics, not like LSD, but I've done shrooms and I've smoked weed, and I am not gonna lie, there are moments where I start panicking because of my own mind. And there are certain things that come to life that I really don't want to see come to life. But to freak out over something like that, and she was talking about doing Dex, like, that's petrifying on my end, at least.
Yeah. And keep in mind, while all of this is like happening, you have Tommy on the top, right? Because they're underground. He's
slashing through camp,
killing kids, dude.
Not the counselors, the kids.
When he kills, I think the boy's name is Jeremy.
I think so.
He kills Jeremy like ugly, like gotchos, bro. Like,
and this is a kid that he has been talking up all summer, giving him self-confidence, like saying, hey, you're not the geek, you're not the nerd, just like
he's also overweight too, which is back in the day, like even now being overweight is kind of hard, but back then,
your life was difficult.
So like seeing like Tommy just walk in and it's sad too because you see him just go, he goes like Counselor Tommy, and then he says Tommy, and then man, that was bad, dude. I hadn't seen a movie like do that in a while, where like the kid just gets killed. Yeah,
I think this was one of the first movies in a long time that we had seen so many kids get killed.
Yeah,
be it off screen or on screen, it didn't matter. It was just a lot of kids.
Yeah,
it was a lot of bodies dropping, and then eventually at one point the counselors start dropping too because there's just so many kids that are killed. I think when they're gathering all the folks, one of the counselors calls out and says, "We have less than half of people here." We come to find out that not everybody gathered at the mess hall, but still, it's still scary that about half the camp members died.
Yeah.
And
he killed at least 15 to 20, at least.
I want to say at least 30, which is like heart-wrenching to think.
Yeah.
But while all this is happening, and Ziggy is also fighting for her life too, because she's above ground, Alice ends up breaking her foot, and this is when Cindy and Alice really sit back and like bond and rekindle their relationship. They talk through whatever kind of issues they had in the past, and they kind of make a pact and say, we're going to get out of here. Cindy pushes Alice through, and they make it to an area with a bunch of red moss that Cindy is rather familiar with because she was cleaning it very earlier in the film.
Which means they're close to the outhouse. Yeah.
And this is where Ziggy, earlier on in the film, she played a prank on the main head girl of the bully group, and she had locked her out in the outhouse. So whenever Ziggy is above ground running around from place to place in the camp, she's trying to figure out a way to free this girl.
They forgot about her.
Yeah, Nick and Ziggy forgot about her. I forgot the bully's name because she's insignificant. And Ziggy goes there, unlocks the outhouse. They get into a fight, but then this girl runs away because I don't know why. She just runs away. And
because the guy from Halloween 2018 pulls up.
Oh, that kid.
Yeah.
Like the guy who plays Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He pulls up, she runs out, and then they both want to save Cindy together because
Ziggy hears Cindy's voice because they're screaming for help. And I think he gets killed because Tommy runs in, and then Ziggy's trying to figure out a way to save Cindy. Alice tells Cindy to go. She ends up like stumbling across Sarah's hand because she's at the outhouse area. And and Cindy figures out a way out. She like goes through another different tunnel, which then leads to almost like a ramp, but the ramp has her into like this ventilation area that she kicks out, and this is when Ziggy is like really being targeted by Tommy. And
that's when I think they had found out that it was a map of the area. So they were at the outhouse where
they had already found out that it was
yeah.
a map,
So when they reconfirm where they're at on the map, and then Sydney remembers what Alice said earlier, that must mean if this is the outhouse, that must mean if you go down this way, you'll end up at the where the pastor killed those kids in 1666, the church.
Yeah,
and
which
the church
is the cafeteria.
either the cafeteria or the mess hall.
Mess hall, yeah.
Yeah, so same shit.
Same thing.
So that's where she ends up. And then Ziggy also, during her whole confrontation with Tommy, she's the one who indirectly gives him his mask, which looks very much like...
the potato sack mask.
Very much like Jason from movie 2, essentially.
I mean, plaid, jacket, mask, axe, like... what more do you want?
Yeah.
All he needed... I think he started off with a machete, right? Or he gets a machete at one point and then goes back to the axe, or it's always
something like that, yeah. Which
big sharp knife.
I think, Jason's used axes too.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, you could definitely tell this is like an homage to Jason.
Definitely.
Like early Jason.
Heavy breathing as well. Like the heavy breathing is emphasized in this film.
He's also tall too, which gives that good, vibe. So Ziggy has her confrontation with him. She's able to escape him. She runs back into the mess hall, I believe, with Cindy, and that's when Cindy kills Tommy, right? She actually goes through with it, even though she said she couldn't. Yeah,
she actually kills Tommy, and they finally break away. But then I think something happens to where Tommy comes back.
Alice comes out through the same area, so she was able to make it. She brought the hand with her. They come up with the same idea, but this time a little bit better than the 94 team, which is to
reunite the hand.
Not just lay the body to rest, but reunite the hand with the rest of her body, hoping that would be it, because I think that's what Nurse Lane implied. That might be the way to...
either that or killing the person.
Because that's why she was so obsessed with the grave, right? Trying to find the grave and all that stuff. So then, as they're about to do that, Alice gives a badass speech, and then Tommy gets reanimated, and he gets reanimated because Ziggy bled on
the
hand. So now they're after Ziggy, and it's not just Tommy this time, it's Ruby Lane.
It's everybody else.
It's the kid, which, by the way, the kid with the bat, you said might be an homage to...
Sam, because it's like it's a smaller person wearing a baby mask, and this person carries himself a lot like Sam, like this, or like this. And they're dragging like a bat right next to them. So it's almost like they're semi-limping, but not really.
Trick-or-treat
and
bag.
then constantly swinging the bat back and forth, just like how Sam was like swinging the bag. So the mannerisms are very similar to Sam from Trick or Treat, which is also another film that I think you and I need to dive into.
I think The Milkman too, which a lot of people universally think is a version of Michael Myers, because he wears the jumpsuit that the milkman would wear, but it's like dark blue, so very similar to Michael's mechanic suit. And then he's also a little like deformed in the face a tad bit, so it makes it look like he's wearing a mask, even though he's not. Instead of stalking babysitters, he's stalking housewives
and kids.
So it's a little different in that way, but similar. So they all come after her, and then that's where we get the I guess the quote unquote double kill, because Cindy and Ziggy make it to the tree. They can't find the body, and they keep trying to dig, but before they can do that, they get interrupted.
And they both get slashed on a repeated basis.
It's pretty bad, actually.
So I think Cindy gets the worst end of the stick, because Tommy is the one who's killing her, and he is just swinging that axe into her chest on multiple occasions. It's not even a quick kill. You can see that she's struggling. She's trying to keep it together.
She's trying to stay alive, just so she can
be with her sister, because the two of them have just recently rekindled their relationship.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
But we did kind of leave out the importance of one character, Nick Good, who will grow up to become the sheriff. He shows up, he resurrects Ziggy, saves her. And I mean, I don't think there's really any way to save Cindy. She had way too much.
Yeah, she died. But Nick seems to be really fixated on the fact that he does not want Ziggy to die at all. Like, zero. No chance throughout on multiple occasions, both during the first scare, during whenever Ziggy's like finally in the mess hall and Nick decides to run out and look for everybody else, and especially whenever he comes across her body under the tree. And he seems to believe in Ziggy about there being a curse, up until Ziggy comes back alive. And Nick almost gets this like very cold, very iced, like distant look in his eyes, where he's not the same Nick Good that we've all been watching on screen.
Yeah.
And he is always talking about how he doesn't want to follow the footsteps of his father, how being an heiress to whatever kind of career or whatever kind of life isn't really all that sometimes you want to create your own stories. And he also makes it a point to Ziggy that he's the Sunnyvaler who's obsessed with Stephen King. Like,
Yeah.
he's the weird kid from Sunnyvale, just like how she's the weird kid from Shadyside.
We come to find out later in 1666, but I'll just go ahead and say it now. We do see a flashback in that movie that Nick Good was the one who put Tommy's name in which was interesting because he did that, but then still went back and tried to play himself as like the
good guy.
So that was very interesting. I guess maybe there was some eternal conflict there, but then once Ziggy came back to life, it's almost like he changed. Like
he kind of accomplished what he wanted to, and then that was it.
And then ultimately he says, camp counselor named Tommy went crazy. So,
and this is all while his father has just recently passed.
Yeah. So, I think 78, the vibe was there. It had a good aesthetic. It wasn't exactly 80s, but it also wasn't exactly 70s, like right in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, 78, so there's that.
Yeah, so it felt like a very good aesthetic. It's probably one of the better movies to take place during that era and to show that era, I think, good.
Especially with the fashion.
The fashion, yeah.
Those song choices.
I feel like I will... So I know your ratings are a little different, but I'll give this one a 8.5 out of 10, maybe a 9.
I would give it an 8.
8, okay. Yeah.
Solid 8.
I think one of the big differences between me and you is that I think I like the actors and actresses more of a 78. However, because 1666's story is so good, I can kind of get by with the actors that we saw like in 94. Like I feel like the story has just culminated so good at that point that it kind of like sells it for me already. Like you could have been a bad actor and I still would have been like, yeah, man. Yeah. I would have been all like, let's get on with this curse shit, kill it, right? You know,
I like the fact that 1666, and I know you and I are kind of jumping ahead of ourselves, but they bring in the important characters of both films into the story. But overall, like I said, I would give 78 like a nice 8. Rating. It's a good film. It's definitely a summer-ween film, like the movie alone by itself, not the entire franchise. So, I mean, if you want to get somebody into the franchise to show them the prequel and the sequel, just throw them into 78. I've seen a whole bunch of accounts listing 78 as like a great summer-ween movie on its own. I highly agree.
Definitely.
It's a good thrill. There's a lot of good kills in this one too. A lot of graphic kills in this one as well.
Right.
I still stand by 94 having one of the best kills that I have seen on screen with the bread slicer. Because goddamn.
And then the kills in 78 are just ruthless with Tommy just going around with that axe.
It's a lot of bloodshed. At one point, you see Tommy's face and hair just painted red. I'm just going to leave it at that. But let us know what you thought of the franchise, or at least the first 2 of the films. MJ and I are for sure going to cover the next 2 films on the next episode. Yeah. And I think we're also going to dive into like the Fear Street universe altogether a little bit more too, because he and I, or at least I, learned something new that I didn't know up until recently, and I have seen this franchise or at least the series on multiple occasions.
I am going to go ahead and say too, we are going to be pulling double duty. We'll probably make a TikTok post and also a Instagram post. So make sure you follow us. Links down below. Because Marva's going to be going out of the country for the first time in a while for about 3 weeks. We're a little under 3 weeks. So it's going to be a little tough. But October, what we want to do for you guys is each week we're going to be diving into the different Halloween trilogies that are out there, or canons or timelines. So we'll be, diving into there and just kind of going over those movies. But I might have a couple of guests on later in September, not the first couple of weeks, but later, to kind of help me and Marva with the load, or help Marva and I with the load when it comes to recording all this content. So be on the lookout for that. But definitely tomorrow, as we're recording this right now, you're going to get Fear Street. After that, Fear Street Part 2. And then after that, maybe Alien Romulus.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for all of that stuff. We're going to try and keep it horror heading into September and October.
In October, man. Just because I'm not here doesn't mean that we're not celebrating Halloween. Like MJ said, he and I are going to take the time to record it in advance because we both promised you whenever we started this that we would be doing Halloween for the month of October.
Exactly.
And please keep in mind that once Halloween passes, MJ and I become very Halloween deprived. So we continue our horror binge up until like February or March of the following year. So
yeah.
that slight break that we had for a split second about Marvel and all things pop culture, we'll continue it here and there, but it's not coming back for a while. I'll just leave it at that.
Make sure also to keep up to date with us on YouTube, because if I do want to talk about that stuff, it might be over on the Slashers and Sync YouTube page, maybe in the form of a live stream. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for all of that stuff.
A lot of content.
A lot of content. We still got Trick or Treat, which is a dope ass Halloween movie. So we could maybe even
a movie that I actually showed him.
Yeah, we can even do maybe a double upload one October week, or that might be the first episode after October. Who knows?
Or if anything, we could do it on Halloween.
On Halloween. Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and if you're listening to us on a podcast app, make sure to follow us, man. Stay up to date with us. We'll talk to you guys next time.